Hi, my little baguettes. Let's play a game. You give me 20 minutes and I put Passé Composé on your fingertips. Ready? Let's get started then. Passé Composé. So the name itself tells us what we're doing. Passé is in the past. So we're doing the past tense. Alright? Now when we talk about the past tense, in English we'll take an example first. I go to the school. Right? A simple sentence. This is in present. Now I want to say maybe yesterday or last month, last week, last year, right? We can go anywhere in the past. There are a lot of actions that happen in the past, right? So when we're talking about the actions of the past, we use the past tense. So if I want to say that I went to school yesterday, I will write I went. The go becomes went. Same way we need to form sentences in the past in French. For that, we use le passé composé, that is your past tense. Now we need to learn the formation. How do we form the tense? That is your la formation. That is your formation. First thing we need is your subject, okay, as in the person who is going to be doing the action. Someone needs to perform the action. So first thing you need is your subject. Now we will put the verb, that is the action, right? Something needs to happen. So that action will be your verb. We always use two verbs. That means it is mandatory that if you're forming a sentence in passé composé, two verbs need to be there in the sentence to indicate that this is passé composé. In English, you'll notice we only have one. The go becomes went, that's it. But in French, you will need two verbs. First verb will be your helping verb or your auxiliary verb, as we call it. Okay, same thing, helping or auxiliary. And second is your main verb, or as we call it, the past participle. For example, here in the sentence I go to the school, I is the subject, go is your verb, and to the school, that is your rest of the sentence. Okay, where we need to focus is these two verbs. How do we conjugate these two verbs? Okay, so first we'll focus on the helping verb, the auxiliary verb. Here you have a choice. Okay, you can either do passé composé with this verb called avoir, to have, or you can do it with être. It's a choice. You can either only pick one, either it's avoir or it's être. Okay, now which one you will do it with depends on the second verb. Okay, that is your main verb or the past participle. All right, you need to know that there's a lot of verbs that we can't count, right? So for now, you need to know that all the verbs are done with avoir, except a few that are done with être. We'll understand this through an example. Alright, so almost all the verbs are done with avoir. Alright, and there are few list of verbs that are done with être. Okay, so imagine avoir is one person. Okay, we'll call them A, and être is one person. We'll call them E. Okay, I'll put an accent on the E, little cap on the E. So now there's a box of crayons. Okay, let's say there are 50 crayons in the box, right? That oil pastel box we have of the 50 shades. Okay, rose pink, baby pink, dark pink, whatever color of pink, that belongs to être. Okay, that means any shade of pink you see, who does it go to? It goes to être. Alright, that obviously means that all the colors that are remaining except pink, that belongs to avoir, right? Be it green, yellow, purple, brown, as long as it's not pink, it goes to avoir. Okay, so all shades of pink crayon for être, all except pink shades for avoir. Okay, this was an example, right? Now think of it in the same way as verbs. The crayons are verbs, right? So there's a list of verbs, 15-16 verbs that are conjugated with être, right? And rest of all the verbs are done with avoir. Okay. Alright, so right now we're going to do passé composé avec avoir, that is past tense with avoir. So I told you there are two types of passé composé, one you can do with avoir and one you can do with être. Okay, right now we're focusing on passé composé avec avoir, that is how do we do past tense with avoir. Okay, so one thing needs to be clear to you is that every sentence will have two verbs. Okay, first verb will be avoir. Okay, that will be conjugated in present tense. Okay, and the second verb will be your main verb or past participle. Okay, now every single sentence will have avoir and one past participle, that means two verbs, right? Now what you need to understand here is that avoir will be there in every single sentence as your first verb. Okay, now we're going to conjugate it. First we'll conjugate the first verb. Okay, that is conjugation of avoir. With conjugate in present tense, we know that avoir is an exception, right? So we conjugate it like this: j'ai, tu as, il, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, and il, elle, pluriel, ont. This conjugation you need to memorize because every single sentence in Passé Composé with avoir will require this. So once you memorize the conjugation of avoir, then we come to the past participle. How do we conjugate the past participle? In English, speak becomes spoke. Alright, when I say I speak and it becomes I spoke, what is spoke? Spoke is the past participle of speak. Okay, so when you make a sentence from present to past, the verb changes. Alright, and this change in verb we call it the past participle. Teach becomes taught, eat becomes ate, right? So that is your past participle. In English, every verb has a completely different past participle. Okay, but in French, it's a lot simpler to make the past participle because there are rules to make the past participle. It doesn't just randomly happen that, oh, speak becomes spoke, think becomes thought, right? It's very random in English. But in French, we have a pattern. Okay, we have a rule to make a past participle. What is this rule? First thing we're going to do is we're going to divide the verbs, which we already know that there are three groups of verbs, right? We have the ER verbs, the IR verbs, and finally we have the RE verbs. Okay, so each verb has its own way of making the past participle. For example, we have the verb parler, to speak. Now I want to convert this into the past participle. How will I do it? There are two steps. Okay, for every ER verb, first thing you're going to do is remove the R. Okay, remove the R from the infinitive. Parler, you have in your infinitive form, to speak. Second step is to add accent on the E, as in this. Accent aigu, as we call it. Okay, then we'll cut the R and we'll put an accent on the E. So it becomes parler. Alright, and we pronounce the E. So we say parler. Alright, and this is your past participle of the verb parler, to speak. We'll take another verb, that is ajouter. Now how do we do it? Ajouter is an ER verb. Okay, we're going to remove the R. We're left with ajoute. We're going to add an accent on the E and we get ajouter, to add. It means ajouter, to add. This is how we make the past participle of ER verbs. Next category we have is IR verbs. IR verbs are even simpler than ER verbs. Why? Only one step. That's it. Just remove the R and you're done. For example, we have the verb finir, to finish. If I want to make the past participle of it, all I need to do is that I see it's an IR verb, I cut off the R and I get fini. Fini, that is the past participle of finir, to finish. Another example, choisir. Choisir is to choose. So choisir, I see it's an IR verb. All I have to do is strike off the R and I get choisi. Choisi, that is chose. So parler, that becomes to speak, becomes spoke. Add becomes added. Finish becomes finished. Choose becomes chose. And for the last group, RE, okay, this also has two steps that you need to memorize, which is very important. First step is to remove the RE. You notice in the first category we were only removing the R, right? Remove the R, remove the R. Here we will remove the R and the E from the end. Okay, and what we'll do, instead we'll add U. This is very important. For RE verbs, you will remove the RE and add a U at the end. How do we do it? For example, we have a verb perdre. Perdre, to lose something, right? For example, to lose one's phone, to lose a pen, right? So lose becomes lost in English. I lost my pen, I lost my phone, I lost my homework, right? Very common excuse. So what we do here, it's an RE verb. Okay, identify it's an RE verb. Then what will I do? I'll remove this RE. And instead, I'll make it perdu. So perdre becomes perdu. That means lost. I lost my phone. I lost something. So we have understood how to conjugate avoir. We've understood how to conjugate the past participle, right? That means passé composé with avoir is done. All you need to do now is combine what we've learned and make a sentence out of it, which is very simple if you understood how to conjugate avoir and how to make the past participle. The first thing we're going to do is that we're going to revise the formation once. How do we form it? How do we form a sentence? Is that you take a subject, right? The person who's going to be doing the action. You conjugate avoir in present tense according to the subject. Then you conjugate the past participle and the rest of the sentence, that is your object. First thing we're going to do is that we'll take an example in English, right? I ate my dinner. I ate my dinner. Now we'll make this sentence in French. First we'll do present tense, then we'll do passé composé. Je mange le dîner. This is present tense. Now same sentence we're going to make into passé composé. Okay, so we're doing passé composé with avoir. First thing we need to do is that we need to conjugate avoir with je. So we get j'ai. Then we're going to take the verb manger and we're going to see which category of verb it is. It is an ER verb, right? First thing you need to do is identify which verb it is. Okay, it is an ER verb. What are the steps to make an ER verb into past participle? Right now it is eat. I want ate. Okay, how do I get this ate? It's an ER verb. First thing is remove the R. Okay, I remove the R, fine. Second step is to add an accent on the E. So I get j'ai mangé le dîner. I eat the dinner. Je mange le dîner. I ate the dinner. J'ai mangé le dîner. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to do an exercise in Passé Composé with avoir to understand better to how to actually do it in an exercise. Okay, so before you start any exercise in Passé Composé, one thing needs to be in your mind, that all you have to do is avoir plus past participle. Okay, this P is your past participle. Okay, anytime you do in Passé Composé, make a note on the side that what I have to do to fill in the blank is avoir plus past participle, always two verbs. Okay, so for you the verb will be given in the bracket as an infinitive. Okay, that means it is not conjugated. Okay, none of the verbs are conjugated. It is your job to conjugate it in passé composé. Okay, how are you going to do it? This is what you need to know. First thing is that we're going to put avoir. That means avoir will be there in every single sentence. Okay, and the main verb, past participle, this is your main verb. The verb given to you in the bracket is your main verb. Étudier, terminer, perdre, choisir, that is your main verb. This is why we call it the main verb. So first thing, we're going to conjugate avoir. Okay, your subject is tu. With tu, it becomes a. With nous, it becomes avons. Nous avons. With vous, it becomes avez. Vous avez. With elle, it becomes a. Elle a. Okay, first verb done, then second verb, past participle. Okay, that is given to you in the bracket. First is étudier. Now what are you going to do? First step is to identify the group. Three groups are there, ER, IR and RE. This one is an ER verb. So I'm going to put the 2 steps for ER verb to make an ER verb into passé composé, past participle, right? What was the step? First step, remove the R. Second step, add an accent on the E. So it becomes tu as étudié, say weekend. Second sentence, terminer, again an ER verb. You cut off the R, you put an accent on the E. 2 steps. So nous avons terminé nos devoirs. That is, we finished our homework. Third sentence, perdre, to lose. Now this one is an RE verb, right? So what are the steps for RE verb? First step, you cut off the R and the E. Okay. Second step, you add a U. So it becomes perdu. Vous avez perdu votre stylo. That means you lost your pen. Now the last sentence, choisir. It's an IR verb. Very simple, right? Just cut off the R and we're done. One single step. So elle a choisi cette robe. Now you should know why we call it the main verb. It is the main verb because it tells you what is happening in the sentence, right? Here, étudier, past participle, we also call it the main verb because it tells you what is happening in the sentence. Avoir is also important, but avoir isn't telling you what the person is doing. Avoir is only telling you that, oh, this happened in the past. That's it. But it's not telling me what action happened in the past. This is being told by the past participle and why we call it the main verb, right? Étudier, terminer, perdu, choisi. It's telling me, so she chose something, right? She lost something. We completed something. You studied something, right? This is the main verb that is telling me what action happened in the past. And when you put avoir with the past participle, you get passé composé. That means all of these actions happened in the past. La négation. Now we're going to do negative in passé composé. That is, how do we make a sentence negative in passé composé? Now we know negative is ne plus verb plus pas. For example, I choose this dress. I did not choose this dress. I speak in the class. I don't speak in the class, right? So for example, je parle dans la classe. This is a positive or affirmative sentence. Now I want to make it negative. It becomes je ne parle pas dans la classe. I don't speak in the class. This is a negative sentence, right? Now we know that ne goes before the verb, pas goes after the verb, parler is your verb, right? Simple as that. Now I'll make the same sentence in passé composé. That is, j'ai parlé dans la classe. That is, I spoke in the class. Okay, this is my positive sentence. Now I want to make it negative. What does the rule say? Put ne before the verb, put pas after the verb. Now my question is, I have 2 verbs. I have avoir and I have parler. Now where do I put the ne pas? Should it go with avoir? Should it go with parler? So French grammar says that it goes to the first verb. That is, if you've heard of it, first come, first serve basis. Now here, which verb is first? Avoir, right? According to the formation, avoir is always the first verb in the sentence, right? Helping verb always comes before. That means ne pas always goes with the helping verb or avoir. Okay, that means ne before avoir and pas after avoir. So my sentence becomes je ne ai pas parlé dans la classe. Now the thing is that this J was apostrophe because A is a vowel, right? That means I had to cut off the E and put an apostrophe here. But because I'm putting na here, the J can go back to as it is, right? But now E and AI are the problem, right? E is there and A is the problem. I can't put 2 vowels together. That means I have to remove the E. So it becomes je n'ai pas parlé dans la classe. That means J gets its E back, right? And ne loses its E. So whoever is with ai, that is to have, it goes with the n. Okay, that means the e gets removed.